Hi, my name is Patrick, and today we're going to talk about pressure inside your boiler, inside your steam heating system, whether you should have any, and what happens, what does it mean if you don't, if your boiler doesn't produce any pressure, is a good thing, bad thing, and also we're going to find out what to do about your raising pressure in your boiler. All right, so let's put those two devices that are actually very crucial for our question, but for a moment let's put them aside. So we can, as always, start with theory. So here's our boiler. We fill it with water. And then we have some kind of basic heating system with, let's say, 2 radiators. Different floors. The system itself has some kind of vent at the end of it, and the radiators themselves have some kind of vents at the end of it. It doesn't matter about their sizes and so on. There's another video I've made about how to properly balance a heating steam system, steam heating system. So have a look at that. Right now we're just going to strictly talk about pressure. Then we add some heat to our boiler. And by definition, the water starts warming up and starts producing steam. And that steam starts traveling from the boiler to all sorts of different openings, sort of air vents. One is air vent at the end of our main pipe, and then from then through the risers into the radiators as well, and then another riser into another radiator, and of course, however many radiators you have. Yeah. And then as the steam hits the internal mechanism of those air vents, they close and trapping the steam inside the radiators, and likewise trapping steam inside the main pipe. So what ends up happening is, let's say we have a thermostat in one of those rooms, and that thermostat still keeps on calling for heat. So because of that, the boiler doesn't care. The boiler is being asked to produce heat, so it keeps on producing heat. Namely, keeps on producing steam. And as that steam nowadays, because of all those vents, now those vents are all closed. So because of that, that steam has nowhere else to go. So what happens? By definition, the pressure inside the boiler raises. Now, each boiler has some kind of a dial. Usually it's 0 to 30 psi. Of course, that boiler is not expected to work at 30 psi because it usually has some kind of pressure relief valve, usually set to around 15 psi. I mean, it's not usually around, but rather it is a 15 psi valve, and it's a safety device. So that means that when the pressure inside the boiler builds up to 15 psi, the safety valve should open and should release the pressure, releasing all the steam into your basement. So the pressure keeps on building up inside the boiler, and so in other words, in a perfectly working system where everything works the way we intended, the pressure should never build up. The moment you build up any steam inside the boiler, it travels to the end of the main, or it travels to one radiator, to another radiator, however many radiators you have. The pressure only starts building up when the thermostat keeps on calling for more temperature. And again, it could be for all sorts of reasons. Maybe you set the temperature to very high 5 degrees on, like, let's say maybe you have a window open next to the thermostat and it's a cold day, so the thermostat never is satisfied. But that also means that whenever pressure builds up in your system, that it's in essence wasted heat. That is, the system cannot accept more steam in itself. So in that sense, it should shut itself down and wait a little bit till the pressure goes down, till those vents again open up. Those vents are meant to open up if they cool off a bit, and that means that steam inside the radiators, it condenses. So that means that the radiators themselves can accept more heat and keeps on giving off the heat to each room. So when those vents open up, then if the thermostat is still not satisfied, the boiler kicks in and starts producing more steam, and that steam once again gets redirected to all sorts of places inside your system. The bottom line is that you do not want pressure build up in your system. you want to work with as low pressure as possible, because any raise in pressure, that means you're raising pressure in the boiler, which means you're raising the steam has nowhere to go, and that means your boiler keeps on producing more steam, and you're wasting that energy because that steam really has nowhere to go. How does the system deal with this raising pressure? And we're gonna talk about in a different video, but in essence, those are the two devices, the pressure controls that control the raising of the pressure in your system. But that's for another video. Anyway, I hope that was helpful for you to understand that your steam system does not want high pressure. Again, we're talking about basic residential steam heating system. So no pressure is the best solution to your system. Before we go, let's just talk about something else. It could be that the pressure never raises in your system, and yet your radiators are cold. On extreme cases, you might discover that much of this so-called no pressure escapes out the chimney because you have a crack in your boiler. So that means much of the steam is escaping through a crack in your boiler. That means the boiler itself never build up any pressure, and because of that, also very little steam gets in your radiators. But again, that's an extreme case. There are very ways to check it. But generally speaking, another problem I guess you can encounter is, let's say, if you have one failing vent. Let's say it's another radiator to our schematics, so that we can see what happens. Let's add another vent here, and for the sake of discussion, let's assume that this vent is totally blocked, broken in a closed position. Because it's blocked, then that means this air that's inside this pipe and inside this radiator can never escape through this vent. So because of that, this radiator will never get hot, and at the same time the pressure raises up. So for instance, if let's say you have a pressure gauge. Now again, the 0 to 30 pressure gauge, that's mandated by the code, so all manufacturers put it on their boilers, because you're operating with such a small level of pressure, usually half to maybe 2 pounds of pressure maximum. So this 0 to 30 gauge barely registers anything. However, if you have a secondary pressure gauge, for instance, from let's say 0 to let's say 5 psi, then all of a sudden you might discover that, let's say, typical your pressure raises at certain speed. And again, I'm right now exaggerating the raise of the speed. It's probably be raising in much slower than that. But let's say one day you discover that at the beginning of the cycle, your pressure rises up very rapidly. Why is it? It's probably because there's some kind of blockage in the system. The steam has nowhere to go to places, wherever the places are. So because of that, the pressure stays inside the boiler, the steam stays inside the boiler, and because of that, you need to figure out what the problem is. But in essence, in a perfectly working system that's well balanced, there should be very little pressure. The typical pressure system operates at 0 to 2 psi of pressure, and that's plenty of pressure for your system to go anywhere. Because you gotta understand that it's not the pressure that really allows the steam to travel. So it's the steam by definition of being produced, because it expands 1700 times from the liquid state to the gaseous state. That expansion itself allows it to travel at quite incredible speeds to all those orifices to push the air out. So it's not the pressure itself. So keep the pressure as low as possible. And how to set the pressure controls and its failure points, that's the theme for another video. All right, that's that.